All right. Hello and welcome to Fantasy Baseball Today. I'm Chris Towers, joined by Scott White. Frank Stanfield is on vacation this week, and he left us with a lot to cover this weekend, Scott. And I got it just before we start. Just a quick shout out to my guy, Scott White, for helping me out with the notes. That was clutch. Thank you very much, Scott. I don't know how Frank does this Monday morning show. There's way too much stuff to keep up with. I feel like I got to a lot of it, but I also I'm going to get to the end of the episode and you're probably going to be like, well, you didn't mention the most important thing of the day. And I'm sure that's going to happen. But no, I feel confident that you're going to get everything that you need from this episode of Fantasy Baseball Today. Speaking of that, on this episode, we're going to recap the weekend, including checking out what's up with all of the trade deadline headliners, where they were hitting in their new lineups, what the next plan is, and who was replacing some of them in their key spots, especially in the bullpen. We're also going to be looking at actually a handful of pretty big names came back from the injured list today or this weekend. Starling Marte, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts. Only two of those guys play for the Dodgers. Those are just two of the stars that play for the Dodgers. And we're also going to be looking at which starting pitchers are in the circle of trust. This is one of my favorite Scott White bits from probably like 2 years ago now, right?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I remember. I didn't know it was a whole bit. I remember I did have. I did refer to a circle of trust before. I think
you wrote a whole column about which starting pitchers were in or out of the circle of trust. So that's what we're going to do, because there were a lot of pretty interesting performances this weekend. Some good, some bad. But first, we've got some really, really big news. Frankly, bad injury news about the best hitter and best pitcher in fantasy. So we'll start with Fernando Tatis on the IL again with a shoulder subluxation. This was occurred, I think, was it Saturday while running the bases? He slid awkwardly.
Yeah,
now
Saturday.
The third time that this has been an issue for him with the left shoulder. Spring training, obviously, when Frank Stanfield backed out of eating a hat. When Fernando Tatis came back from that injury the first time. My cats are fighting in the background. Good timing, girls. And Fernando Tatis has been placed on the 10-day IL. He's going to rest and rehab the shoulder, but, and this is key, Jace Tingler, talking to the media today, did say that surgery is on the table. Didn't make it sound like surgery is likely, but this was always the risk. Tatis trying to play through this injury. And, I made the Hanley Ramirez comp in, early on in the season, how that was kind of a lingering thing that kept going until he finally had surgery for it. Hopefully it's not going to require surgery right now, but it does seem like Fernando Tatis is going to need surgery at some point in the off season. So if you lost Fernando Tatis, there's absolutely no replacing him. But one, we'll start with any interest in Ha-Seong Kim, the likely beneficiary of Tatis' injury. He did homer with 3 RBI on Sunday.
It's not nearly enough to capture my interest. No. I keep going back to this well, and it seems like when people start to buy in, he cools off. The well cools off. But the well is warming up again. It's I don't know what's going on. It's like too close to the mantle of the earth or something. But yeah, the well is starting to warm up, and that well that I'm referring to is I'm making the analogy worse. Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers, like the key, the most obvious potentially available player that you should try to pick up. He's 47% rostered in CBS fantasy leagues. He didn't have a home run in his first 12 games of the season as he was coming back from that hamstring injury. Since then, he's hitting 287 with a 36 home run pace. I think he had 5 home runs in the month of July. Sub 800 OPS in the month of July, but that was partially due to a 270 BABIP, which is low for him. So Brendan Rodgers, especially in a roto league, because he should be a pretty good batting average source, but even in points league, I think he's the top guy.
Yeah. Just the upside to availability ratio there for Brendan Rodgers. I mean, nobody else who qualifies at shortstop comes close. So yeah, that would be the first place to turn for me.
What about in a points league? This is a guy that came up for me, Kyle Farmer. He has been ridiculously hot lately. I believe he had another 3 RBI game this weekend. Where do you put Kyle Farmer in the discussion of potential Fernando Tatis replacements?
I mean, pretty low. He feels like a hot hand play. He's not a young guy. He's never shown this kind of upside before. He did elevate the ball better in July, and better than he ever has before. So, maybe some kind of change happened there that can have him tap into power more like he showed in July. But Kyle Farmer is not somebody I'd invest a lot of trust in. I did put in a couple bids for him in Roto leagues, just looking for a hot hand to fill all those lineup spots.
Yeah.
But not with a lot of conviction, not a very big bid. Not somebody to get excited about, I don't think.
All right, let's look at some of the most added players at shortstop, or at least shortstop eligible players. You got Kyle Farmer. He's 19% rostered right now. Enrique Hernandez, 70% rostered. Would you rather have him than Farmer? He's coming off a very good month of July.
I would, but I mean, he's been around long enough that we know his deal. He can look like he's indispensable at times. He goes on these like power surges. He's actually coming off of one here recently. But the final numbers are never very impressive.
After that, I mean, you've got Brendan Rodgers, who we already mentioned, Jorge Polanco and Gleyber Torres, who are nearly universally owned. Let me get my cat out of here. Bobby Witt, but not in the majors, and doesn't seem like it's likely to happen anytime soon. At least we haven't been given any indication of that. So then you go down to Miguel Rojas, Jose Iglesias, and those are definitely guys who it feels like we know who they are. And like Miguel Rojas is actually, he's okay, I think, but certainly not someone who is going to make any kind of difference. So let's look at some guys who are available in 75% or fewer of CBSSports.com leagues. And that starts us off with Jazz Chisholm at 75%. He's 40% started. Relative to Brendan Rodgers, would you rather have Rodgers or Chisholm rest of season?
That's actually a close call. I think we've seen so little from Chisholm really since April that I'm kind of liking Rodgers more. I still really like Rodgers. I know after a good June, he kind of cooled off in July, and maybe everybody thought he faked them out, but I would stick with, like, even if you're not looking to fill in for Fernando Tatis, you just want a high upside middle infielder. I mean, Brendan Rodgers' numbers aren't bad, just as they are, and yet he hasn't really had that kind of streak that that really catapults him to stardom. His BABIP for playing at Coors Field is only 301. I mean, that's pretty normal BABIP for a guy at Coors Field. Is like 50 points too low,
Yeah.
Actually, his road numbers are better than his home numbers, which is very odd for a Rockies hitter. And I think
that's usually a reason to buy a Rockies hitter.
Right. So yeah, Rodgers would definitely be the one I'm most excited about.
What about a couple other names? Joey Wendell, he's slowed down a lot from his hot start, and Luis Arias, they're both right around 65 to 70% rostered. How do you feel about those guys? They are multi-position eligible. You can use them at shortstop, but also corner infield.
Yeah, it's a playing time issue for both.
Yeah,
especially Arias. Now that they've acquired Eduardo Escobar, the Brewers have to play third base. Really leaves Arias without a place to play regularly. I imagine he'll steal starts from Colton Wong at second base sometimes, but not really an opening for him there. If one name you haven't mentioned here, and he's on the IL currently, but he's only 47% rostered, is Josh Rojas, who's ran kind of hot and cold this year.
Coming back from that dislocated finger.
Yeah, I don't expect he's going to be out long with that injury. So, that might be somebody to stash away. And actually somebody I wanted to talk about who isn't shortstop eligible, but he's second base eligible. And is widely available is Luis Garcia, not the Astros pitcher, actually.
The one who was a better prospect.
Oh, the one, yeah, the more famous Luis Garcia before the Astros pitcher took off this year, and that's the Nationals second baseman who's now been called up to play second base with, I guess, who was it that opened up that spot for him? Josh Harrison, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Anyway,
Trey Turner.
Oh, right. Yeah, they traded Trey Turner. So yeah, he's playing. He's up. He's playing. Playing shortstop. So he will be shortstop eligible. It seems like potentially here soon. He's been playing both second base and shortstop. But what I really wanted to point out with him is, he'd come up the past couple years and didn't really do much, and so he seems like, kind of a post-hype guy. But he's only 21 years old.
Just turned 21.
And he, months ago. I feel kind of bad that I'd overlooked him in the prospects report. I didn't even realize what kind of year Luis Garcia, this 21-year-old, was having at AAA. Really has been.
Yeah, those numbers: 303, 371 on base, 599 slug, 13 home runs. He has 17 home runs. 25 home runs in 342 games. 13 of them have come in his most recent 37 at AAA. And, that's the kind of thing that you can write off as a small sample size. But like you said, because he's so young, he wasn't even 21 when the season started.
And his previous high for home runs in the minors is 7, and that was over a full season. So over like a quarter of the season, he had 13. I mean, that's a loud breakthrough for a guy who the scouts always liked. And, he showed that power with a 16.4% strikeout rate too. So Luis Garcia hasn't done much since getting called up, and there have been higher end prospects who have taken their time to deliver in the majors. But it's upside. It's upside, and maybe Luis Garcia, having been exposed to the majors before, he will be able to break through.
All right, let's move on to the next bit of very bad news, and that's Jacob deGrom. He's been shut down for 2 more weeks after, he had more inflammation after throwing a bullpen session on Thursday. This was a classic Mets situation where he didn't throw on Friday. Jacob deGrom has been, for most of his career, he likes to throw every day in some way. And even during this layoff, he had been trying to. He didn't throw on Friday. The manager says, "Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it." And then it turns out, we have to worry about it. He's going to be shut down for 2 more weeks and then try to work his way back. So you're probably looking at all of August lost. And my question is, if you're in a head-to-head points league and you're not guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, could you consider dropping Jacob deGrom?
I don't think that would be something I could entertain. No, I mean, just the impact is too great. Sure. If you want to have any hope of winning in the playoffs once you do get there, Jacob deGrom, I assume, would be a big part of that. Yeah. I am a little concerned about this beyond just the time he's going to miss. I mean, forearm issues.
Yep. Recurring. Just.
And that's often a precursor to something significant with the elbow. So, I actually had him in the Scott White Dynasty League for the past few years. As people who regularly listen know, I'm the 3-time defending champion. I had him on my team for all 3 of those years. And actually,
we've heard it enough already, Scott.
Actually had him for a decent salary. It was only be a $36 keeper this offseason, but I decided to move him.
Just for context, if he was healthy going into next season and he was available in the draft, he would probably be a $70 player.
Yeah, for sure. It's a head-to-head points league, worth pointing out. Even if in a redraft league, I mean, deGrom wouldn't be surprising to see him go for more than 50. So yeah, good salary, 24-team league. I'm trying to win this year, but I traded him for a significant prospect package because I'm worried about how much he's going to be available next year. Is part of it. That was part of the reason I decided to go ahead and move on that deal. Part of it was because I got Clayton Kershaw back, and it's like, okay.
Although
Kershaw might make it back sooner, though he had a bit of
he had his own elbow inflammation setback or soreness, I guess. It
Yeah.
wasn't inflammation. It was just some soreness. But yeah, this is you have to start thinking about that with Jacob deGrom. You know, this is one thing that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of years is how there's always like something every season. The last like 3 years that had been like there was one point where it was his elbow, I think two or 3 years ago, where he went on the IL with elbow inflammation and it turned out to be nothing. Now the recurring nature of this, I think you do have to be concerned. Here's a question for you. Is Max Scherzer the number one starting pitcher in fantasy right now?
He might be. Let me double, because obviously I had deGrom.
Yeah.
Even, when I anticipated he might be back as soon as this week, Yep. And I know I moved down Darvish recently. I think there's definitely a case for Scherzer. I think I would still take Garrett Cole over him, but of course he's had his issues since the foreign substance crackdown started. I think there's been enough of a rebound happening that I'm still buying into Cole as the second best pitcher behind deGrom. So yeah, I'd go Cole over Scherzer, but that's the only one I think. Brandon Woodruff probably in that conversation. Yeah.
It's been and Garrett Cole had a pretty terrible start in his most recent outing. Might actually be his worst of the season. Yeah, it was worst of the season. 7 earned runs and 5 1/3. Still 10 strikeouts and 2 walks, but yeah, quite a bit of attrition at the top of the starting pitcher rankings for various reasons over the last couple of weeks.
Although I'd be remiss not to point out that Walker Buehler has actually been the highest scoring pitcher in fantasy this year.
Well, because as we all predicted, Walker Buehler has just been an absolute rock, a stable, deep innings eating pitcher.
It's one of the most amazing stats of this season. He had one start where he went 6 innings last year. He's had one this year where he hasn't gone 6 innings. I hope that lasts all year because it's just too perfect.
And speaking of attrition at the top of the starting pitcher tables, this is going to affect next season as well. Tyler Glasnow is expected to have Tommy John surgery. Looks exceedingly likely that we won't see him next season, I would guess. It's possible that he comes back in 12 months, but you look at Chris Sale and Luis Severino and Noah Syndergaard, those three are going on 15 months or more.
Yeah.
Since having surgery. So I would guess Tyler Glasnow's out until 2023.
And I believe this is his second Tommy John surgery too. I think he had one as a Pirates minor leaguer. I love when I just pull out a fact like that I didn't look up before. I want to say that happened though.
That I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
I don't think so. No, because
all right. Well, that makes me feel better about his dynasty value and everything.
But yeah, no, I mean, even so, and this is definitely looking ahead to next season or even following that. And
yeah, forget next season. It's like
he's arbitration eligible through the end of the 2023 season. So he's going to be pitching in a contract year when he comes back. Remember, he had 123 strikeouts in 88 innings, 2.66 ERA. He looked really like a top 5 to top 10 starting pitcher earlier in this season. And I mean, he might be the biggest consequence of the sticky stuff crackdown. The way he talked about how he had to, change his grip and change his mechanics when he stopped using sticky stuff. He was pretty adamant that played a part in his injury. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully we'll see him back at full strength in 2023. Let's move on to this weekend's games. And let's start off with, oh my goodness gracious. I don't have the drop. Scott, if you want to say it, if you want to do your best, Susan.
Oh my goodness gracious.
All right.
Is that pretty good?
That was all right. Yeah. What's your, oh my goodness gracious player of the weekend?
Well, Chris, if I had to pick one guy to say, oh my goodness gracious about, trying to remember who it was. I know I had somebody picked out here.
Well, I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Talk about my beloved Miami Marlins. How about Sandy Alcantara? 10 strikeouts, 7 innings pitched, all shutout against the Yankees. Obviously, this is a Yankees lineup that will destroy pitchers and will get destroyed by some pitchers because there's a lot of swing and miss in this lineup. There always has been. Now there's even more. Although it's interesting that they basically have like the 3 highest strikeout guys in the majors, plus Gary Sanchez, and then nobody else in the lineup strikes out. Sandy Alcantara, very good in this one. And this kind of, I guess, I don't know if it reverses a slide that he had been on, especially with regards to his strikeout rate. He had not struck out more than 5 in a start going back to June 22nd. Had 23 strikeouts and 32 and a third before this one, and the swinging strike rate had been down, but he still had a 3.29 ERA coming into this start. That went down even further. I still view him as, at this point, probably almost a top 15 starting pitcher. What about you?
I mean, he feels stable, and I think we're going to see a lot of instability at the position this year. It seems like, I don't know if it's by design, but I know the Brewers situation is by design. Yes. Freddie Peralta and Corbin Burns probably going to have their innings cut back. I don't know if it's by design, but it seems like Carlos Rodon, not as many pitches, not as many innings lately. Trevor Rogers.
There were a lot of starts with only like 80-something pitches this weekend.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that down the stretch, particularly from the young guys. And Sandy Alcantara is a young guy, but he just seems to have that.
Yeah. He's
developed that workhorse reputation. I will point out that his strikeout rate and his swinging strike rate weren't nearly as good in June and July as they were in April and May. So he's kind of reverted back to where he was prior to 2021. But
the control has still been very good.
Yeah.
So
not an ace, but just a steady, stable innings eater.
Kind of a Jose Barrios type, except that he's probably better at run prevention because he pitches in the NL. So that's
more of a ground ball guy.
Gracious. How about yours?
So I'm not sure this is the guy I picked up before, but I think it works, and I think we shouldn't wait any longer to get to it. Craig Kimbrell.
Yeah.
Craig Kimbrell's usage has to be, since joining the White Sox, is highly disturbing so far. Highly disturbing.
I agree.
So on Saturday, he made his White Sox debut, pitched the 9th inning, a scoreless 9th inning, with the White Sox down by a run. Sunday, Kimbrell pitched again, but he pitched the 8th inning of a tie game. Liam Hendriks worked the 9th inning of that tie game. So still neither of those pitchers has gotten a save since that trade was made. But it certainly seems like from the first 2 days of usage, Kimbrell is being treated more like the setup man. And I don't think that's reason to drop Kimbrell.
No.
Because it's like,
but
I think you got to give it at least a week, even in shallow leagues. Even in shallow leagues where the ratios don't matter.
Listening to Friday's podcast, I was surprised that you were so confident that Kimbrell was going to be the closer for them. Because
I didn't say I was confident, did I?
You seemed pretty confident.
That was my best guess. I thought it made the most sense. I mean, Liam Hendriks has spent most of his career as the setup man.
My thought was just very simply, he's got another year under contract and Craig Kimbrell doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's the incumbent, so it feels like give that guy the deference because you're clubhouse reasons and all that. That was just my sense. But yeah, I will say in a 10-team roto league, he's not a must roster. And I think even potentially in a 12-team points league, Craig Kimbrell may not be a must roster.
If he turns out to be a setup man. But I'm just saying 2 days worth isn't enough to really know. I think we need a lot more information, and I'd hate to cut Kimbrell too soon. So I know you probably don't want dead weight around. I get that. But you just got to wait and see because, I mean, it could be a situation where they're basically splitting the role. In which case, a situation where, maybe Tony La Russa just changes his mind one day. Like maybe
what I
there's
will
a conversation that happens between the 3 of them. And
in a points league, if he's not getting 80% of the saves, he's probably not a must roster player. That's just the fact of life in a points league with a closer. 12-team points league. There's only 24 of them. And even then, there are enough RP eligible starting pitchers that you might be only looking at like 20 closers being used at any given point.
Yeah. I mean, because how many teams don't have a closer right now? Don't have a clear closer. I mean,
a decent amount, but that should settle down.
Yeah.
Relatively.
I'm not so confident.
All right. Well, let's move on to, since Frank's not here, I'll throw him another, oh my goodness gracious player, and we'll make it a Yankees player because how could we not talk about Anthony Rizzo? He's home runs in his first 2 games with the Yankees, had a decent game on Sunday as well. It was nice. Anthony Rizzo gets traded from the only major league team he's ever played in the majors for, but he still gets to have a little homecoming. Fort Lauderdale kid gets to play in Miami for his first series after the trade. So that was probably nice for him. He hit 4th in his first 2 games with the Yankees, batted leadoff Sunday, homered in his first 2 games, and this is what we were talking about. I guess not really because it's not Yankee Stadium yet, but both of the home run that he hit was pulled. And so that's what you want to see. I think all but one of his home runs so far has been hit to the pull side. And that's where you talk about, like, if Rizzo's going to have this big second half, it's going to be with a power boost playing with the Yankees in a very good lineup.
You've seen that stat. It's worth reiterating for the people who didn't listen to the emergency podcast that StatCast
15 home runs at the time of the trade.
14 home runs at the time of the trade. Baseball Savant has this section on each player's page. It would be home runs by venue. It's just measuring the distance of the home runs, basically the distance and location of the home runs. It's not taking into account environmental factors. But those 14 home runs for Anthony Rizzo would be 23 if he was playing at Yankee Stadium. So it just seems like the perfect move for him. It seems to be validated already, and he hasn't even played his first game at Yankee Stadium. So
let's talk about the players who were traded, what they looked like this weekend, mostly with the hitters, where they were batting, how often they were playing. Like I mentioned, Rizzo hit 4th, cleanup in the first 2 games, and then batted leadoff in the 3rd. You can't take a ton from the Yankees lineups in the first 3 games because, one, there was no DH. They were playing in Miami, and so Giancarlo Stanton, I believe, played in the outfield twice. Luke Voit did not play at all this weekend, and DJ LeMahieu, he had a triceps injury and he was scratched from Friday's game, but he was able to play. And then he didn't play Saturday or Sunday. So those were 2 of the interesting notes that I saw for the Yankees.
Well, just to clarify, Voigt's still hurt. He's not back yet.
Oh, that's right.
So, but I did see, or actually I guess hear a very concerning snippet of an interview with Brian Cashman where, he didn't really sound, it doesn't sound like the Yankees are all that motivated to play Luke Voit when he gets back. Like, said basically, we all know what Voigt's capable of, but he's just in a position now where we had to fill the spot, and it would have been very easy for him to say, well, we're going to try Stanton in the outfield more so that we can get Voit some at bats at DH, and he didn't say that. So I'm worried about Voigt's relevance at this point. Of course, one injury could change everything, and
I think there are reasons to be at least somewhat concerned about DJ LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres, just with the fact that, yes, they didn't have a DH this weekend, but Stanton only started 2 of the games. LeMahieu didn't start the one that Stanton didn't start. So, I don't know if that's necessarily a concern. Like I said, he was scratched Friday with a triceps issue, but something to keep in mind for sure. All right, moving on to some of the other players. Let's just get all the whole Cubs lineup out of the way in their new homes. And man, wouldn't it have been nice if the Cubs had those guys in their lineup this weekend? Because Chris Bryant debuted Sunday for the Giants, hit a home run. Bat second for the Giants. That's where he was hitting for the Cubs. I think that's where he's going to hit moving forward. Big lineup upgrade, like you guys talked about on Friday's episode. And I'm an analytics guy. I don't really love the feely wheelies kind of stuff, but I will say, Chris Bryant does, like, this situation does seem like it could be the kind of thing that gets Chris Bryant going, just because, God, like him and Anthony Rizzo on the bench in that final Thursday night game for the Cubs where they didn't play. They just left them on the bench in what ended up being their final game for the Cubs. Like, they looked so sad. Like, Chris Bryant looked legitimately like emotional at the end of that game. And, you know, given the history with that team, given how poorly the last couple of seasons have gone, given that everyone knew he was just playing out the string this season until he got traded or became a free agent, I could just see this being the kind of thing that, like, I could see a huge second half for Chris Bryant because he's such a good player. He had a really good July after struggling in June. I think he's just going to be awesome for the Giants. I think that's a great pickup for them.
Too many feely wheelies from you, Chris.
That's all right. But it's also just that he's good, you know? Like, it's Chris Bryant. He's really good. And the fact that he's batting second in a good lineup that's only going to get better with Evan Longoria, Tommy La Stella, and Brandon Belt all likely coming back this week. They actually have far too many players for the lineup spots that they have. It's a good problem to have if you're relying on a bunch of 34-year-olds like the Giants are. Javier Baez hit cleanup in his Mets debut, also homered. So all three of those guys homered in their first game for their new teams. You know,
it's Frank, I bet.
Feels like old times. I feel like he was doing a good job. Frank. He would have texted me first. Oh, it was Frank?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Right.
You know who it was, though?
I didn't think anyone was saying I was doing a good job.
I actually want to explain who it was. So the Scott White Dynasty League had its trade deadline on Saturday, and I was trying to negotiate a deal with somebody else in the league. He sent me his number to put in my phone. I typed in the number wrong, and so I texted just some random somebody about it, and that some random somebody just replied to me.
Was it okay?
Yeah, they just wanted to know who I am.
Don't they know who you are? All right.
That's what I should say. Yeah.
The other new Yankee, Joey Gallo, hit second twice in the lineup, third once. You know, like we said earlier, LeMahieu didn't really play this weekend. Voigt's still out of the starting lineup, or still on the IL. So, you know, we still don't know quite what that's going to look like. But Joey Gallo is going to play every day, you know, somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope it's center field because that means Stan's in left and Voigt's at DH, but we'll see.
And, you know, less Brett Gardner is probably better at this point.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, Craig Kimbrell worked the 8th, Kyle Hendricks in the 9th in a tie game on Sunday. And on the Cubs side, you had Kyle Ryan get a save versus Washington on Saturday. Manuel Rodriguez worked the bottom of the 8th in a loss Friday, struck out 2 in his major league debut. Then came in the bottom of the 9th in a tie game on Sunday. Did allow a walk-off home run, but you know, Manuel Rodriguez is someone who, you know, throws in the high 90s, seems like he has a pretty good slider. You know, interesting to look at that usage for him. What do you think? You think Kyle Ryan's the guy?
I think they're going to mix and match. The Cubs are. I mean, Manuel Rodriguez, it's possible. It's possible somebody like him steps up and claims the role. The guy I was investing in where I had the space for it was Dylan Maples, who I know is on the IL right now, but only with a blister. And he's put up closer caliber numbers when he's been healthy this year. He's under control for another year. So I'd look at him too, but it may be a situation where they never really settle on a guy over the final 2 months.
Yeah, Manuel.
I don't have a lot of faith in Kyle Ryan. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, Manuel Rodriguez is a 24-year-old who the last 2 seasons in the minors, 2019 and 2021, he had 92 strikeouts over 67 and 2/3 innings. So, you know, I would say of all of them, he probably at least represents some glimmer of upside and hope. Moving on to some of the other traded players, Starling Marte hit second in all 4 games that he's played for the Oakland Athletics so far, has 4 stolen bases in his first 4 games, including 3 on Sunday, stole first and second in the first inning in this game. So that's good to see. Josiah Gray, acquired by the Nationals in that Max Scherzer trade Turner trade. He will make his Nationals debut on Monday.
2-star pitcher.
Him.
2-star pitcher right away.
Must start?
No, I wouldn't say that. But, I mean, if you're looking to roll the dice on upside, he's definitely shown a ton of swing and miss ability early on. He's also given up 4 home runs in 8 innings. But, I mean, the swinging strike rate is up there with deGrom in those 8 innings.
Very good minor league numbers as well.
Yeah.
Consistently in the low 2s in ERA. So
now that we know he has a spot and like he's going to stay in the Nationals rotation unless he's just horrible.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in him now than when he was with the Dodgers. I mean, pick him up for the upside and don't necessarily start him right away. But if you're just looking for an upside play, if you're looking to replace deGrom, I mean, here's somebody with the same swinging strike rate.
Yeah. Jose Barrios, first start for the Blue Jays. Nice soft landing, getting to keep playing against an AL Central team. 6 innings of shutout ball, 7 strikeouts against the Royals. Let's see. Kyle Schwarber is expected to begin a rehab assignment soon, so he could be in the Red Sox lineup in a couple of weeks. The Braves did find room for both Jorge Soler and Adam Duvall in their lineup. In 2 of the 3 games, Duvall actually started all 3. Soler, I believe, was just Friday and Sunday. Soler went 4 for 7 with a walk and a strikeout. Hit 6th in his first game, 2nd in his second game. And then Adam Duvall was, I think, 6th or 7th in all 3 games. So
there was I think Jock Peterson sat out for the lefty the Braves faced. So there was only 1 game where Duvall, Soler, and Peterson were all in the Braves outfield so far, and Peterson was the one to start in center
and batted leadoff.
He's been batting leadoff most of the time since he was acquired. So they're at least willing to do that on occasion. They've shown play a bad outfielder in center field. I actually think Duvall would be a better choice, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be an everyday situation. So there may be, Soler didn't really show up until Saturday. So he played both of the games he started both of the games that he was on the roster for. It was really Peterson who is the only one who sat so far since everybody was there. Although everybody's not there yet. Eddie Rosario.
Yeah, Eddie Rosario's on the IL. They talked about that. He's going to be out a few more weeks, but could be back relatively soon, and that's going to, potentially change things because not exactly room for him to, play anywhere else.
Yeah. I think it'll be kind of a hot hand situation if Soler turns back into a 200 hitter, certainly because he's the worst defender too of a bunch of, less than great defenders.
Duvall's good.
Yeah, Duvall's good. Duvall, I mean, he's not a true center fielder, obviously, but he's won a Gold Glove before as a corner outfielder.
All right, let's talk about the Nationals bullpen. Kyle Finnegan got the first 2 saves for Washington after the Brad Hand trade. And he's got decent numbers. 3.21 ERA, ugly 1.45 FIP, or ERA, 3.7 FIP, 46 Ks and 42 innings. What's your interest level in Kyle Finnegan?
I'm wrong. Adam Duvall has not won a Gold Glove. He was probably a finalist one.
He was a finalist, I think, last year, actually.
All right. So who were you actually asking me about?
Kyle Finnegan.
Kyle Finnegan.
First 2 saves for Washington.
Yeah.
And trade.
So I'd been saying, Frank was like, "Oh, Kyle Finnegan, you got the first save," and I was like, "Come on, Frank." But it looks like the Nationals are just ready to go with that until it doesn't work anymore.
Come on, Scott.
So in leagues where I needed saves, Kyle Finnegan, there were a lot of potential closers on that list, but Kyle Finnegan was near the top. I think I had like Tyler Clippard ahead of him. I had like Dylan Floro behind him though.
Makes sense.
And trying to think of who else was in that group. Cole Sulser, who we saw get 2 saves over the weekend. It's just, how often are the Orioles going to have save chances? So he was pretty far down the list. We saw Spencer
Patton got his first save chance for the Rangers, but he blew the save.
But he blew the save. So still uncertain there, but we've been saying he looked like the lead guy all along.
And how about Diego Castillo allowing a walk-off home run on Saturday in his first opportunity for the Mariners? Ewald working the bottom of the 9th in a tie game.
I wouldn't be so quick to give up on Paul Sewald in leagues where you can afford to speculate on relievers like that, because Diego Castillo is, I think, a little less than closer caliber, really, even though has a history in the role. And Sewald, of course, has been awesome this year. I was also discouraged to see David Bedner, who looked like the most exciting closer pickup from the trade deadline. He was right back to working the 8th inning. I believe it was on Friday or Saturday, one of those days this weekend. And it ended up not being a save chance. I think actually Bedner blew the lead in the 8th. But Chris Stratton worked the 9th, and Chris Stratton would have been my second guess. So I'd still rather invest in Bedner until we have more clarity here, but it could be Chris Stratton instead.
All right, and then a couple more before we move on. Miles Straw has batted his 8th for Cleveland in his first 2 games. Homered on Sunday, actually. So way to go, Miles Straw. He's got 17 steals. And that's it. That's everything from that. So we're going to take a quick break. When we're back, catch up on the rest of the injuries, news, and notes from the weekend. Take a look at some circle of trust guys at starting pitcher, see who Scott is willing to trust or isn't at this point in the season, and a little bit more next on Fantasy Baseball Today. And we're back. All right, just like that. Injuries, news, and notes from the weekend. Biggest news, Joey Votto did not homer on Saturday. So came up.
And then he sat out Sunday. They benched him because of
it. Came 1 game short of tying the major league record for most consecutive games with a home run. He finished with 7 straight games with a home run, 9 home runs in that span. It was actually funny. He had a quote. It was something like, I'm a StatCast nerd, and I looked at it, and my first home run and the very first to start it was like, it had a 100 expected batting average or something. It was like a wall scraper that he hit 94 miles per hour or something. And the last one, the game ends. His last at bat, I believe, was a 110 mile per hour double off the wall that had like an 840 XBA. So, sometimes you eat the bear, and sometimes, Alex Bregman was pulled from Sunday's game with hamstring tightness. That is hopefully not a big concern. It doesn't sound like it right now, but he is on the IL with a quad injury right now. And, now it's both sides of the leg. So that's never good.
Yeah, they use the word precautionary, but
yeah. We'll see.
I don't know. Not counting on him being back this week. That's
I was actually willing to activate him in my Tout Wars league. Now I'm not going to for this week. So not what you want to see. James Kaprielian placed on the IL with shoulder impingement. Like we mentioned earlier. Oh, go ahead.
They're also downplaying that one. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to it otherwise. So I'm just going to mention Dalton Jeffrey.
Yes.
Dalton Jeffries, who remember got a lot of hype this spring, and we thought he was going to win the job, the 5th starter job, once AJ Puck got hurt, and Jeffries himself got hurt. So he made his season debut in Kaprielian's place, and he'd been struggling for the most part at AAA, ERA over 5. Some better signs recently, but just not very consistent. He looked pretty good against the Angels though. On Sunday. Jeffries
had him in 15-team leagues.
I'd actually rather add Reid Detmers, who was making his major league debut opposite him, and he didn't look as good.
Pitch well, no. Let me find that line.
6 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings, gave up 2 home runs, only 2 strikeouts.
2 walks.
But he was among the minor league leaders in strikeouts. He was having an awesome year in the minors. He'd only made 1 start at AAA, so they're moving him pretty quickly. Big jump in velocity in his first professional season. He was only drafted last year, so college guy, not young, but his velocity was up this year to go along with a great curveball. Tons of strikeouts in the minors. I know the first start didn't go well. Logan Gilbert's didn't go that well either, as memory recalls. So I'd like Detmers. The upside is more interesting to me than Dalton Jeffries. Dalton Jeffries, the best thing he has going for him is he throws a lot of strikes, avoid walks, and he walked 3 in his debut. Maybe just nerves. I feel like we had that same conversation about Kaprielian himself, actually, when he first came up. But Jeffries, I don't think disqualified himself from being a contributor this year with that start.
All right, Chris Sale had 7 strikeouts over 5 innings in Saturday's start at AAA. AAA Worcester, Is that how they pronounce it? Isn't that one of those? It's got like a non.
Netic?
Yeah, I don't know. AAA Worcester for the Boston Red Sox. He's probably going to make one more rehab start. So we're getting very close to the return of Chris Sale. Next rehab start, I believe, will be on Saturday for AAA. And he could be back after that. And actually, I would bet on it, assuming nothing goes wrong. Tony Gonsolin was placed on the IL with shoulder inflammation. Chris Paddock was placed on the IL with a left oblique strain. The Mets did not sign number 10 overall pick Kumar Rocker. There were some concerns about his elbow, so they will get the number 11 pick in next year's draft. And Kumar Rocker just goes back to school or pitches an independent ball, which is kind of silly. He should be a free agent. Anyway, Jeffrey Spring was on the IL with a right knee sprain, suffered during Saturday's start. Brad Keller left Sunday's game with back tightness. Domingo Armand was placed on the IL with shoulder inflammation. He actually pitched pretty well on Saturday before that injury. Travis d'Arnaud has begun a rehab assignment. Alex Cobb was placed on the IL with a wrist injury. Byron Buxton has begun hitting off a tee and swinging a bat, so that's a good sign as he comes back from that wrist injury. Ranger Suarez is moving to the rotation.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah. There was a point where we thought he was going to be the closer.
Well, he had been.
Pen.
Yeah. Velasquez to the pen, with Suarez to the rotation. So obviously this clears up. Oh, is Ian Kennedy going to close now that he joins the Phillies? We thought he would.
Seems like he will.
Yeah. And he did work the ninth inning Sunday in his Phillies debut. Lopsided win for the Phillies. He gave up a 2-run homer, but lopsided win. I'm not so anxious to drop Suarez if I'd already picked him up for saves. He had, before he moved into the closer role, he had several appearances where he worked like 2-3 innings, came up as a starter in the minors, obviously, and extreme ground ball rate. There's a reason why his ERA is as low as it is. It may not work as well stretched out to start, but I think it's worth a shot. I think it's worth holding on to him to see how this goes, especially in a points league where you don't necessarily need a big strikeout total from your starting pitchers, and you could slot him in as a relief pitcher.
There you go.
Which could be very valuable.
All right, let's talk about a few other injuries and whether you can start them in the upcoming week. Josh Donaldson left Friday's game with a hamstring injury, sat out Saturday and Sunday. Are you starting Josh Donaldson this week?
Probably not, if I can help it.
Michael Brantley left Sunday's game with an ankle injury. X-rays came back negative. Are you starting Michael Brantley?
It might be harder to help it with him.
Yeah.
3 outfielder league, though, I'd try to avoid it.
Andrew McCutchen left Saturday's game with a knee injury, did not play on Sunday. The Phillies are downplaying it, but would you start him?
More likely. I mean, he's not as high end as Brantley, so that factors in. But I think he'll probably be okay.
Rhys Hoskins missed the last 3 games with a groin injury. What about him?
Try to avoid it that many days in a row.
Yeah. And same for Eloy Jimenez with that groin injury. He sat 4 straight.
Yep.
Unfortunate. What do you get? 4 or 5 games back before suffering injury? That's just
everybody who's come back or attempted to come back from a long-term injury has either gotten hurt again on the rehab assignment or gotten hurt as soon as they got called up. It's really frustrating.
We'll knock on wood for all these guys coming back from injuries who came back this weekend. Alek Manoah pitched 7 strong innings against KC. Is he a top 40 starting pitcher for you right now? He's got a 247 ERA, a whip under 1, and 56 Ks in 47 innings. He has been, feels like it's gone under discussed how good Alek Manoah has been, actually.
I mean, he missed, 3 weeks? So it's been a while since I had to think about him.
I wasn't rankings. You, Scott. There hasn't been as much hype around him as I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, I have him around 60th now. I could definitely stand to move him up a lot. I probably wouldn't make it in my top 40. That's a pretty tough group.
Sure.
But top 50.
All right. Some of the other big names who came back. Trevor Rogers, his velocity was fine. The results against the Yankees, not so much. 3 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs allowed. Not exactly what you want to see, but continued his streak of not allowing more than 3 earned runs all season. So, that's good. I imagine he'll be fine moving forward, but innings and pitch counts are going to be a concern. 3 big name hitters who came back this weekend. Mookie Betts actually started at second base for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Who would have imagined him starting at second before Trey Turner?
Would he be your number 1 second baseman if he qualified there?
Well, yeah, I would say so. That'd be great for his value. I don't expect he's going to qualify there, but we'll see.
So either Trey Turner or Mookie Betts, number 1 second baseman at some point.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a really good chance. Obviously, Trey Turner picks up second base eligibility, not just for this season, but for next season too. And yeah, he'd clearly be number 1 at that position. It's been a while since there's been a first round second baseman, but he would be one.
Yeah, probably 2 years with Altuve, probably going back to 2019. Corey Seager made his return, went 3 for 10 over the weekend. Good to see him back after missing so much time with a broken hand. Starling Marte made his return to the lineup on Sunday. I believe he went 1 for 4 in that one. Lourdes Gurriel, Anthony Santander, and Jazz Chisholm all came back from their IL stints, as did Carlos Carrasco, made his debut after missing the whole season and most of spring training with elbow and quad injuries. 4 innings.
He was another one who suffered a setback or says he was gearing up to return.
Yeah, 4 innings, 3 hits. Not surprising that he didn't pitch deep into that game. He wasn't really stretched out in his minor league rehab assignment. They just wanted to get him back. 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 8 whiffs on 58 pitches. Fastball spin rate was down from last season, so
a lot, 300 RPM.
Yeah, with anyone who we haven't seen, obviously that's something to keep an eye on.
But I think more significant was the actual output from Carlos Carrasco.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to worry about the spin rate until it really affects their performance, or if it seems to be affecting their performance. I was encouraged by this. 8 whiffs on just 58 pitches. I feel good about having stashed Carrasco all this time.
All right. We'll try to get to more of the weekend standouts. But first, did you know Dansby Swanson has 20 home runs, career high? I was kind of surprised to learn that.
I did know. He's coming off a 7-homer July.
Yeah, 2 home run game on Saturday. He's on pace for 30 homers. Did you know Dylan Carlson stole his first base of the season on Sunday?
I did not know that. I knew he was underperforming in that category, but you can't underperform much more than 0.
0 is the ultimate underperformance, and 1 is actually only 1 better. Did you know Sebi Zavala was the first player to have his first 3 home runs in the majors come in the same game? So how about that?
Oh, wow. Now he's a nobody.
That's a fun fact. Yeah, we actually had 2 low end. Is he a catcher?
Sebi Zavala is a catcher.
We had
27-year-old catcher who was hitting 178 at AAA.
2 very, very low end catchers in the city of Chicago had 3 home run games this weekend.
Well, the other one wasn't a catcher, right? I don't think he's a catcher. Is he a catcher?
I'm looking it up.
No, center field.
Rafael Ortega. Yes.
Yeah, Rafael Ortega, and he's he does have he has shown power in the minors before. 21 home runs in AAA 2 years ago, but he's like 29 years old. So, I mean, he might play quite a bit just because they need somebody to play.
Yeah, he's 30.
But I wouldn't be investing in Rafael Ortega outside of deeper leagues.
There you go. All right, and let's see which starting pitchers are in or out of the circle of trust. And Scott, I'm just going to let you define it however you want. Let's try to move quickly. We've got about 10 minutes left. We got a lot of names to get to. So first, is Kevin Gausman in the circle of trust anymore? It's been velocity's been down a little bit. 3 straight starts under 5 innings. He has not looked good lately. He was obviously the number 1 starting pitcher at least through the end of June in both points and roto. 4 1/3 innings in this one. 9 strikeouts is good, but 6 hits, 3 earned runs. Any concerns? Is Kevin Gausman in your circle of trust?
Yeah, he's in my circle of trust.
There's
I can't
levels,
He's in the inner circle. He's in the inner circle. I was trying to buy low on him in one league.
Top 10 starting pitcher still?
Yeah, 3 bad starts, and not even bad all the way. He struck out 9 in 4 1/3 innings in this most recent one. So, can't bail on a guy who was very recently the number one pitcher in all of fantasy, as of I think around the All-Star break. That was after just 3 shaky starts.
All right. What about Framber Valdez? 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. He had 24 walks to 31 strikeouts in 33 and a third innings in the month of July. He had a 4.05 ERA. That speaks to how great he is at limiting damage on contact with all the ground balls he gets. But 24 walks in 33 and a third innings. Can you trust Framber Valdez right now?
He's still in the circle of trust. I still would be okay. I would still be comfortable starting him in basically any league. Haven't given any thoughts to dropping him or anything like that. I'm not as sold on him as a truly high-end guy as I am Gosman.
Sure. I mean, that goes without saying, I think.
But he's in my circle of trust still.
What about Zack Gallen? Had a really good start against the Dodgers on Friday night. 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 8 strikeouts, but has been very up and down while dealing with, what was it, a hamstring and then an elbow scare, or an elbow scare, then a hamstring. 23 strikeouts and 17 and 2/3 innings in the month of July. Strikeout rate's been very good since coming back from the IL. Only 1 bad start. He has 20 strikeouts over the last 15 and 2/3 innings over 3 starts. 1 start, he gave up a 7 runs, so 5.74 ERA. Where are you at with Zack Gallen?
You know, the underlying numbers haven't been that good, even when the results have been good.
Mhm.
And the fact that he was dealing with an elbow sprain, I mean, you know, that was, he returned from that in June. As you mentioned, the hamstring injury was most recent, but like that, I'm not sure he's totally right. I'm not sure he's totally healthy. I actually dropped him after his last start, which was not good, in a 10-team league to pick up Patrick Sandoval, who, by the way, would now be number 1 in swinging strike rate after a 20 swinging strike game this weekend. But that's Patrick Sandoval. Gallen, you know, his swinging strike rate is nowhere near that. And I would say he's not really inside the circle of trust right now. Obviously, if I dropped him in a league, he could get back there. And I'm not anxious to drop him anywhere. It's kind of a weird situation, but I would say he's not in the circle of trust right now.
How about Zack Greinke? Gave up 4 home runs in his start on Saturday against the Giants. Obviously, Giants at this point, pretty tough matchup, but that is now 6 straight starts where he's allowed a home run, and looks like 12 of his last 13 with at least 1 home run allowed. Before this start, his previous 8 games, he had been pretty up or down. Only more than 6 innings, 2 starts, only reached 6 innings. In 3 of 8, had a 3.68 ERA. Do you trust Zack Greinke right now?
Yeah, I still trust him. That 8-start stretch, you know, the ERA was still...
There's a bit of an arbitrary endpoint because he had an 8-inning start and a 9-inning start right before that.
Right, but even if you're not crediting him for those,
yeah,
it's still 3.68 ERA over the 8-start stretch. I mean, yeah, I'm not really that concerned about Zack Greinke.
All right, let's move on to some guys who are either have worked their way into the circle of trust or are trying to. What about Luis Garcia? He gave up 5 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings against the Giants this weekend. Again, another bad, tough matchup. He's got the Twins this week. Would you start Luis Garcia this week?
It's that Twins lineup. No, I mean they didn't sell off as many pieces as they could, but you know, obviously no Cruz, maybe no Donaldson. Regardless, Luis Garcia is in the circle of trust. He's still, you know, other than him giving up runs these past 2 starts, everything else has looked good.
What about Shane McClanahan? 6 innings, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts against Boston this weekend. We have been kind of waiting for Shane McClanahan to put it all together, but he has been pitching deeper into games over his last 5 starts. Where are you on him? Actually, last 7 starts, he has gone 6 innings in 4 of them.
I feel like he's more of an upside play than like a must-start guy. So, maybe in the outer circle of trust, I would say. What's interesting for McClanahan is 4 straight starts with his velocity down significantly, more than 1 mile per hour on the fastball. But all of them have been good. So I don't know if he's taken a little something off to get better command, but I found that to be interesting.
Marcus Stroman, he has gone fewer than 6 innings in 7 of his last 8 starts, gave up 4 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings this weekend. Is Marcus Stroman out of the circle of trust?
No, but there are. It is weird that he's not pitching deep into games anymore. And I know there was an IL stint during that time, like in the middle of a very long stretch of not pitching deep into games. Let's see, what is he up to now? Yeah, so 7 of his past 8 have all been less than 6.
Mm-hmm. 1/8 inning start there, and 7 right before that.
Right. There was an IL stint in the middle of that, so I don't know if it's totally fair, but I think Stroman is. Yeah, he's obviously not high end, but he's in the circle of trust still.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that 8 start stretch. He still has a 3.82 ERA, which isn't great, but if that's your worst stretch of the season, that's still pretty good. What about Tarek Skubal? 5.86 ERA in July, only 23 strikeouts. He gave up 4 earned runs and 5 2/3 in his most recent start. Obviously he was pitching really, really well from the time he made that switch to being more sinker and changeup heavy as opposed to 4-seam and splitter. But diminishing returns lately. Where are you at on Tarek Skubal?
I would say he's outside of the circle of trust. I've given some thought to dropping him in some shallower leagues. I still like the upside. So, again, I'm not anxious to drop him, but I don't trust him right now.
How about a pitcher who's kind of tough to figure out? Interested to see what you think about Jordan Montgomery, who had a solid start against Miami, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. The problem is you're getting 5 innings out of him. That's pretty much it. Last 6 starts dating back to the start of July, 2 starts with more than with 6 innings or more. He pitched into the 6th, then another one, but he's got a 2.76 ERA with 35 strikeouts and 32 innings in that stretch. He's pitching really well, basically since it looks like it's really since like the start of May. He's got a 3.48 ERA in his last 16 starts.
Yeah. I think trust is a good word for him because I really don't, I think there are definite limits to his upside, but just seems really steady in a way that I think is believable. And pretty much every time we're talking about streamer pitchers for the next day, Frank lists off Jordan Montgomery, regardless of who his opponent is. I'm picking Jordan Montgomery.
Here's an interesting one. Who do you trust more, Jordan Montgomery or his teammate Jamison Tyone, who just put together a 1.16 ERA over 5 starts in the month of July, 31 innings, helped along by a 2.14 BABIP. The peripherals aren't nearly as good. He basically had the 1 start with 9 strikeouts. And other than that, the results have been good.
Yeah.
But 16 strikeouts over his last 4 starts in 24 innings. It's not what you want to see.
No, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about Jamison Tyone because I feel like the underlying numbers actually look better earlier in the year when he wasn't pitching as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I can't say I trust him more than Jordan Montgomery, and I wouldn't even say Tyone is in the circle of trust. Yeah, it's hard to figure out exactly what was going on in that month of June, where obviously he had a lot more success on balls in play, even though he wasn't missing as many bats.
Yeah, it was the month of July, by the way.
Yeah, July. Sorry.
What about Kyle Muller? He had another very solid start against Milwaukee on Saturday. 7 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 earned run, and 5 innings pitched. He's got, over the course of the season, a 2.43 ERA, 33 Ks, and 29 2/3 innings. That's over 7 appearances, 6 starts. So it's 28 innings and 6 starts.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's upside here for sure. It's just, is he it is like 5 innings when he's going to top out this year? Is there going to be a lot of walks along the way?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the answer is yes to both. I don't see many 6-inning seasons happening as a rookie, and walks were an issue for him throughout the minors as well. I think the stuff is good. I think the long-term value is interesting, but I would not be putting a lot of trust in Kyle Muller for 2021.
That makes sense. All right. We're kind of out of time.
I know.
A lot we didn't get to. Give me 2 things that you need to talk about before we go. Austin Gomber struggled, 4 earned runs in 1 inning. What do we think of Austin Gomber?
I think we don't need to worry about him based on this start alone. Since April, he had put together a 2.67 ERA, 0.88 WHIP, 8.4 K per 9. I mean, he probably overachieved, but
he had become an elite control pitcher.
Yeah,
after being really bad before.
Really bad in April. Yeah. So, he was due for some regression, but I'm not so anxious to drop him. And I'm not so anxious to drop Touki Toussaint either.
7 earned runs in 3 1/3, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks.
One more start like that, and yes, get him out of there. But, he looked so good the previous 2 starts, 10 strikeouts in the start just before this one. And even in this bad start against Milwaukee, he had 11 swinging strikes on 79 pitches. That's a good rate. So, give him a mulligan and see if he bounces back next time.
All right, and then one more question before we go. Is George Springer back to being a top 20 outfielder for you?
I never moved him out of my top 20.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Is he a top 15 outfielder?
I'm not sure. I moved, maybe when he was first injured, I moved him outside of my top 15.
Is he a top 10 outfielder? 8 home runs, 993 OPS in the month of July. And then he opened August on Sunday with a 1-for-3 game with 2 walks.
Top 10. He's right on the verge of that. I'd put him a little outside, but it's not hard. Not for any good reason. Kind of parsing at that point.
Yeah. It's hard to get him up there. But
yeah,
he's definitely close. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we go?
I think actually I'm looking at some of the stuff we didn't get to in the notes, and we kind of snuck it in there at different parts. We talked about all the prospective closers already.
Yeah. I did want to point out James Karinchak. He's been pretty bad since the sticky substance ban. Obviously, I don't want to, imply anything, although I think there may have been something going on in Cleveland. Not sure what. But he's been pretty bad basically since the start of June. His ERA up to 4.71 over his last 23 appearances. 26 strikeouts in 21 innings is still good, but not James Karinchak. So he had, and actually it was actually a little bit before that. The end of May was pretty rough too. So if you go back his last 28 appearances, 20 walks in his last 25 innings with a 6.48 ERA. He gave up 3 earned runs, recorded 1 out in the 8th inning, and then Emmanuel Clase came in. Did allow an inherited runner to score, but got a 5-out save. I think that was on Friday or Saturday. So seems like it's tilting back towards Emmanuel Clase probably.
Yeah, probably. Okay, since you didn't put streamer pitchers in here, I'm going to do it real quick before we go. If you need pitchers to stream for Monday, I like Tyler McGill against the Marlins.
Yes.
Michael Wacha against the Mariners. And I think I would go Ranger Suarez against the depleted Nationals over his opponent, Josiah Gray, in that game. Those all seem like decent streamers, though.
Could be a fun one to watch.
Could be.
All right. That's it. We made it through our first show without Frank. Only 4 more to go. I hope it was okay. Look, there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
There was.
A lot of stuff to keep up with. A lot of ins and a lot of outs. A lot of what have yous. So thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball today. Thanks to Scott White. Frank, we miss you. We'll see you next week. We'll be back tomorrow. Bye.